Manx Radio Sport.
Good evening and welcome to Friday Sport Preview on Manx Radio. Rob Pritchard and the team with you here to cast an eye over the island's sporting action to come. So taking a look at what's coming up in tonight's programme. With bad weather fast approaching, what's the state of play for Manx football this weekend? We also hear about the ambitions of an FC Isle of Man player who's re-signed for the club after a couple of seasons away. A chance to fulfil a childhood dream for Manx boxer Mathew Rennie this weekend as he fights for a national title at Wembley Arena. We get the latest on the weekend's rugby programme, or what's left of it, and 6 finals in one day planned tomorrow for the 2024 indoor finals in Manx hockey. That's all to come this evening. Welcome back to Friday Sport Preview on Manx Radio. Rob Pritchard and the team here to take a look at the sporting action that is or was coming up this weekend. We call it Friday Sport Preview, but I think previews are going to be at a premium this evening because of the schedules that have been massively affected by the impending bad weather from Storm Darragh expected over the course of the weekend. Before we get into anything, it is probably just worth a reminder, if you haven't seen the weather warnings that are in place and about to come into force as well over the next couple of days. So they are as follows. A yellow weather warning is currently in place from Ronaldsway Met Office for heavy rain. That came in at 3 o'clock this afternoon and runs until noon tomorrow. It's an area of low pressure being tracked across the British Isles across today and overnight into Saturday. Persistent and heavy rain affecting the island. 15 to 25 millimetres of rainfall quite widely expected across the island, but with 30 to 50 millimetres possible over the hills. And of course tomorrow as well, that amber weather warning for severe gale to storm force winds across the Isle of Man. Across the island, 60 to 70 mile per hour winds are expected, and in particularly exposed areas, particularly the west and southwest coast of the island, there's a risk of wind speeds reaching up to 80 miles per hour. That warning coming in from 4 a.m. tomorrow on Saturday, the 7th of December, until 11:59 p.m. on Saturday, the 7th of December, so just before midnight going into Sunday. So if you do have to head out and about tomorrow for whatever reason, please do take extreme care with the conditions that are already expected. And speaking of the conditions and the effect that they've had, sport has been affected just like a lot of other areas across the island going into the weekend. To take a look through what the situation is with football, we have our football correspondent as usual with us, Tony Mepham. Tony, good evening. So first of all, for those who haven't seen the updates coming out of the FA today with regards to football and the conditions coming up, what can you tell us at the moment about this weekend?
No problem, Rob. Lunchtime we sort of had a chat at the FA and just see where we were going, and we're pretty sort of glued up with what the forecast was, what was going to happen, what's coming in tomorrow, and safety's paramount. Football can wait, but it's the safety of everybody. We just said let's sit tight until 3 o'clock to see that the weather forecast that is coming in happens, and then we can make a decision. And it was an easy decision to make, and it's important that everybody sort of gets to know it. So we've got it out on social media with yourselves and everybody else to say that all games tomorrow, everyone, including the Bowl, St Mary's, is off, and with FC Isle of Man as well, they've had their own problems. So it's most important that we sort of look at everything, and that's why we just sort of delayed it a little bit, but it's the right decision to make.
Now, for those, just a bit of context for those who may be not familiar with the week-to-week side of things. Now, quite a lot of the time when we expect some poorer weather conditions, maybe on Ireland, that could affect football, quite often games are given until the very last minute, really, to get a chance to go ahead. Every chance is given for them to go ahead. We don't often see a decision made this early. Why was it so important that a decision was made this early this time around?
I think really the weather forecast that was coming in, and well done to the Met Office and everyone involved, because they've kept us all informed, and we've had everything, the screens up the lot. I checked with you, Rob, as well, just to make sure, and I think a little bit as well, we wanted to be fair to the people out there, because we know it's coming up to Christmas time. So I'm not saying that the men want to do it, but I'm sure the wives would like their men to be alongside them when they go shopping. So that was one. Also, there's a lot of staff parties around as well. So it means tonight that anybody's out on their staff party don't have to sit back and not enjoy themselves. And we looked at everything, all the scenarios indeed. And, the fixtures aren't behind. They are a little bit now because we've had 2 weeks near enough a full programme. But 2 weeks ago, when we had our first sort of real bad bit of weather, we again just sat back, just see what the clubs thought about their pitches, because it was improving, but it was sort of easy to see that all clubs were near enough looking at the condition of the pitches, and apart from 2 games we lost the whole lot. So Now we've got a bit of a problem because we've got 2 semi-finals that we've got to look at to try and get played.
Indeed, well, we'll come to that right now, actually, the semi-finals. So we were due to have a schedule of league games as well. You can see a list of all the matches that have been affected and postponed tomorrow over at manxradio.com. Amongst those, the 2 semi-finals for this year's Railway Cup competition, Ayr United versus Laxey and Corinthians versus Peel. Now, of course, the original plan is for the final to take place on Boxing Day. We did see this, actually, pretty much around the same time last year as well. The semi-finals were also disrupted due to poor weather. So how tight a timescale have you got now if you do want to make it a Boxing Day final in the Railway Cup? Is it possible?
It's definitely possible, 100%, and our aim is to get the Plum Properties Railway Cup on Boxing Day. It's a massive date on the football calendar. Everyone enjoys it, and I've seen it over the last couple of years or so, Rob, that the amount of people that start coming to the Railway Cup, they're looking for something to do. It's a good game of football, 2 top sides, you know that. So what the plan is at the moment, we'll rearrange them for next Saturday. We've booked the bowl, because St Mary's they haven't got a game next week, which has worked out quite nice. And if we've got a problem, the FA do have the powers to move the game off their ground if it's not playable, and we can move it to the bowl. The next problem we've got is we could have probably played it as a midweek game, but you've probably picked up that on the 18th of December, FC Isle of Man are playing against the Isle of Man national team. So we've got that one to cater for. We've still got a Saturday on the 21st, but that was put down as a free week for everyone to sort of help families and preparation and everything, but it's still there. So if both clubs agreed to play on the 21st, we wouldn't...
The 21st is an option if both of all parties...
Yeah, we wouldn't empower them, but if they wanted to play, that's another option. But it's so keen for the diary that we try and get this out of the way on Boxing Day, because it just means so much to the clubs and to the people who want to watch it.
Indeed, and not just, of course, the Railway Cup semi-finals, but the rest of that league programme we saw, as you alluded to a couple of weeks ago, the schedule was quite heavily disrupted. So, although, like you say, it's a little bit behind now, where do you fit that in around the festive break? Because, of course, after the festive break, we're also seeing a couple of cup competitions start. We expect the preliminary round of the ECAP FA Cup as one example as well. So how much wiggle room have you got in the coming months?
We've got plenty of wiggle room. We've got a first set of rearranged fixture date on the 4th of January, which is the ECAP FA Cup. So there's 16 teams with games on that, so we'll find some space in that one. With St John's, their home games, we can always play them midweek. We're going to sort of, I think, be a little bit more forceful this year before we sort of give clubs option to go in. We might just, if we fall a little bit too far behind, bring that into play. But next week, I'm sure with the 2 semi-finals, we're going to have teams that we might be able to get a game on one. I'm thinking of is Onken against St George's. But, as the cup games go, when you look at it on the 4th of January, you lose 8 teams straight away from the sort of, if you like, the FA Cup. So that means you can get dates in. So it's not a panic station, but, with Island Games year and everything else, the preparation on that, we would like to try and get the fixtures nice and tightly finished towards the end of the season instead of dragging on.
Well, we'll quickly run through the fixtures in full in terms of, so all matches postponed on Saturday across the Isle of Man FA leagues. So these are the games that have been postponed tomorrow. The 2 Railway Cup semi-finals, Ayr United versus Laxey and Corinthians versus Peel. 4 games off in the Canada Life Men's Premier League, Moran versus Foxdale, St Mary's versus Russian United, Onken versus St George's and St John's United versus Union Mills. 4 games also off in Ardern and Drug Unlimited Division 2. Ramsey Youth Centre and Old Boys versus Castletown, Governors Athletic versus Maloo, Pulrose United versus Braddon and Douglas and District versus Michael United. In Canada Life, Combination 1, 4 games off there. Foxdale versus Moran, Russian United versus St Mary's, Peel versus Laxey and Union Mills versus St John's United. 5 games off in Ardern and Drug Unlimited, Combination 2. Castletown versus Ramsey Youth Centre and Old Boys, Douglas Athletic versus Colby, Jims versus Douglas Royal, Braddon versus Pulrose United and Michael United versus Douglas and District. So whilst we won't have any games on Saturday, Tony, we do, as it stands, have a schedule for Sunday.
Yeah, the Sunday fixtures, when you look at the Canada Life Women's 7-a-side Floodlit Cup, those games stay on Division 1 and Division 2 because it shows that the weather is improving a little bit. It is on 3G. I would think the Masters football, I'll speak to the clubs tonight or maybe tomorrow morning to just see like Peel, Onken, which is being switched to Old Boys already, and Union Mills. I think common sense prevails. I think the guys should look at that and call that off tomorrow or even tonight, because the weather that's coming in, Rob, and the weather that's chucking down out there at the moment, it's no point in damaging the pitches and then maybe losing them for 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, let's take a look as it stands with those games going ahead, subject to change. Let's take a look at the Canada Life Women's 7-a-side Floodlit Cup. We've got 2 games in Division 1 and 2 games in Division 2 on Sunday. So in Division 1, Tony, 2 games. All 4 games, we should point out, taking place at the Bowl throughout Sunday. But in Division 1, Corinthians versus Douglas Royal and AC Maloo up against Onken Yellows.
Yeah, we'll touch on the Corinthians appeal 11-a-side Floodlit game last week later on. But Corinthians against Douglas Royal, the rule is that you cannot play any present island players, so squad members that have been picked by Wayne Lacey. And Corinthians got beaten quite comfortably recently by Maloo, AC Maloo. 5-1, I think it was. So I would think Corinthians probably just got enough to take a result against Douglas Royal, but it depends what sort of quality Douglas Royal got out, because players working and stuff like that, it's going to be difficult. But AC Maloo against Onken Yellows will be a cracking game, because I think AC Maloo and probably Peel will be the 2 teams that will possibly win that Division 1. But AC Maloo and Onken Yellows, 2 good teams out there. Maloo have been fantastic in this competition so far, and you can only see possibly AC Maloo taking the points in this.
And also 2 games in Division 2 at the Bowl, and they are Union Mills versus Onken Blues and Castletown versus Maloo Ladies.
Yeah, so basically it's Union Mills against Onken second team, and Union Mills dipping the toe back into women's football, which is great to see, because they were one of the top teams a few years ago, had 2 teams, but now trying to rebuild, which is great to see. Onken have got so many good young players coming through, and their junior set up from 16s, 14s, 12s and downwards to 8s is absolutely brilliant. It bodes well for the future of women's football. Castletown against Maloo, this one has just been postponed. Castletown can't field a team, so Maloo ladies will get the points in that one, and Castletown found it tough, but again, they've given it a go. They've tried to sort of get a team together, but it's proved a little bit harder at times.
And before we take a brief look at the Masters football as well, we've spoken a few times about this new 7-a-side format in the Canada Life Women's Floodlit Cup brought in this season, and what it's trying to do. What has been the feedback maybe from those involved in women and girls football at the moment to this?
I think it's been pretty good, to be honest with you, and it's certainly helped with taking the island players out, because it can prove a little bit one-sided. We had to try it, and we'll look at it again. We'll review it sort of after New Year when the final fixtures are played, just see where we can improve it, because we changed it a little bit basically 4 days before the competition started, when we went from 20 minutes each way to half an hour. So it's worked all right in that one. The 11-a-side, okay, there's only 2 teams in it, but we had to give the 2 top sides something else. But yeah, we've got a new development, or if you like, women's development coach involved. We'll get some interviews for you on that one with Jamie Lee. But it's fantastic, I think, to see something that we've tried with the clubs be a success. Now we find out how we can go again and improve it, because we're on a bit of a march now with women's football. Everything's in place to try and improve it. They've got to join in as well, the players and the clubs, and hopefully we can get women's football back to where it was a few years ago.
Well, that's the women's football side of things. And in the Masters football, like you say, there are conversations to be had, but as it stands, 3 games there on Sunday. Yeah,
there is. And when you look at the fixtures, there's some tidy ones in there as well. Peel against Laxey. Peel have got some really good players, but again, depends who are available. And so have Laxey as well. So that would have been a good game. Onken against Governors. Well, Onken are sort of not running away with it, but top of the league. Governors Athletic, though, have had some good results in the Masters football. And Corinthians against Union Mills. 2 sides who a little bit down the table, but, Nigel Moody at Corinthians, and also Neil Akakaladu, I should say, the manager of Union Mills, have got some good players in there as well. So that would have been a tight game, but I think those 3 will go, Rob, I really do.
Well, we'll wait for confirmation, but just as it stands, the Canada Life Women's Floodlit Cup 7-a-side and Masters football currently going ahead on Sunday. A reminder, if you've just joined us as well, that all of Saturday's Isle of Man FA Football League matches, including the Railway Cup semi-finals on Saturday, have all been postponed and will be rearranged in due course. Well, this gives us an opportunity, funnily enough, maybe to take a look across the seasons a little bit more generally. We're just past the halfway point in the Men's League campaigns. Let's start with the Canada Life Men's Premier League. Now, there was just one little shift last week weekend that saw Peel leapfrog Ayr United to the top on goal difference, both on 31 points, but Peel on plus 32, Ayr United on plus 23 after dropping points again in a 2-2 draw at home to Onken towards the bottom of the table. Onken, incidentally, just above the relegation zone on 10 points. In the 2 relegation zone spots at the moment, St George's in 12th on 8 and Moran at the bottom on 3 with just the 1 win so far. I mean, Tony, naturally we talk a lot about the likes of Peel, Ayr United and the teams at the top and such. Yeah. Who else do you think has stood out at this halfway point in the season in the top flight?
Probably for me, I know it's my club, but Corinthians, because I was honest with a few of the committee the other day, and I just thought that they'd struggle to get into that top 6 because there's no doubt about the talent that is there. But I didn't expect the talent to sort of blossom as quick as it has, because you've got 17, 18-year-olds there who are really making a name for themselves in Manx football. But Foxdale, I think Foxdale were always going to be sort of top 6-ish. But now with no League Ale for about 3 months, you've got Jay Chatwood in there. Jason Chalmers' form has been fantastic. So I think Foxdale are there or thereabouts. The one for me, Rob, is the last couple of weeks. I think St Mary's are going to have a real say of where this league is going to go, because I think St Mary's, on paper, if they've got their full team out, and I mean people like Dan Hattersley in there, maybe Adam Adibayi as well, other people like that. They've got Sammy Gelling in that team, and Carl Clark's just masters that defensive role. I think St Mary's could be looking for some trophies and everything else, so it's gone well for them.
Well, before we move on and take a look at Division 2, just some breaking news in with regards to motorsport as well, and it concerns the Russell Road Racing team that have been competing at the TT in recent years, run by Michael Russell, Jack Russell as he's known within the paddock. The team has actually confirmed that the team will be withdrawing from three-wheeled racing throughout 2025 due to what it describes as circumstances out of our control. In a brief statement, the team says, "We would like to wish Jake Roberts, Mr. Russell's passenger, every success with wherever his ventures take him, and the team are looking forward to racing some solo machinery throughout the season. Keep an eye out for some updates in the new year with regards from the Russell Road Racing team." So that just in the last couple of minutes, the Russell Road Racing team withdrawing from three-wheeled racing throughout 2025 due to what it calls circumstances beyond their control. But they are looking forward to racing, in their words, some solo machinery throughout the season. So just a little update there on the motorsport side of things. Turning back to football then, the Canada Life Men's Premier League we've just been talking about there. We've got a couple of moments just to take a look as well at Division 2 here, another hotly contested division once again this season. Just a point separates the top two. Douglas High School Old Boys at the top, still undefeated after 11 games, 9 wins and 2 draws, no defeats on 29 points. Just 1 point behind them though are Braddon on 28 points, and with a slightly superior goal difference, 7 points further back, Ramsey Centre and Old Boys in third, who've been impressing in recent weeks. Tony, again, the same question. We might talk about the likes of Douglas High School Old Boys and Braddon at the top, but who elsewhere has impressed so far at this halfway stage in Division 2?
I think we're there or thereabouts with the team. I thought Braddon might have been sort of top of the table, but they're not far away. Old Boys have been absolutely flying, and it's basically a new team, so credit to them. Ramsey Centre sneaked up really well. Sticky start for them, but have looked good over the last few games. Castletown, if you put those 6 points that they had deducted back on 24, they'd be in third place. You've got Colby, also have had a reasonable start to the season. They've played a game less than the top teams, so if you give them a win for that 11th game, they'll be on 21 and ahead of Ramsey Youth Centre in third spot. Michael United, we know what's happened there. Unfortunately lost quite a few players, and they've just got to sort of patch the team up. But yeah, I would say the top 5, top 6 are about right.
Well, let's take a look then at Canada Life Combination 1, looking at the combination divisions. And perhaps unsurprisingly, up in the top 3 are the defending champions Ramsey in third and Russian United as well, who've been dominant in that league in recent years. But maybe a big surprise package here, Tony. At the top of the standings at the moment on 30 points is Onken.
Yeah, it's massive that, Rob. And when you look at that league table, you just think, when's it going to stop? And they've only lost 1 game out of the 11 that they've played. But I think Russian and Ramsey will be breathing down their necks. And as we come to the second stage of the fixtures, the halfway turns happened, then they've got to just wait and see when they play them teams if they can take the points. But Russian, Ramsey, always there. Ramsey just pipped Russian last year, but also you can't forget St Mary's. They're always around that top 5, top 6. St Mary's as well. And St John's, who have been really strong over the last few years, just slipping down the table a little bit. They've conceded some points against teams well below them over the last few games, and that's sort of making them a bit hard for them.
And also well contested is Ardern and Druggan Limited combination 2 at the halfway stage here. Just 5 points separating the top 3. Colby top at the moment, just the 1 defeat from their opening 12 games, 10 of those victories. And then 2 points further back, Douglas High School Old Boys, their first team doing well in Division 2, and in combination 2, Old Boys battling towards the top. 2 points further back, Ramsey Youth Centre and Old Boys, again another team impressing at combination level. So another hotly contested league towards the top there, Tony.
Yeah, it is, and credit to Colby when you look at it, Rob. It's only a few years ago that Colby didn't have a combination side, and here they are sort of top of the league and going well, scoring plenty of goals. When you see the goal difference, plus 44. But Old Boys, they're right in the thick of the mix, but started to pick up defeats. You've got Ramsey Youth Centre always strong in Combi 2, and you've got Bradden marching in there on 4th place with 25 points, and just below them Castletown and Governors going well. So all to play for in all the leagues, and that's what we want to see.
Tony, thanks just for the moment.
Manx Radio Sport.
Well, elsewhere in football, he's the latest addition to the FC Isle of Man squad, but certainly not an unfamiliar face to Ravens supporters. After 2 seasons plying his trade higher up the pyramid in the Northern Premier League system, Jack Camarda has re-signed for the Island side for the remainder of the 24-25 season. Speaking to Manx Radio this week, Camarda explains his big ambitions on his return to the club, what he feels they can achieve as a group, and his experiences off-island in recent times.
I'm absolutely over the moon to be back signed with the club. You know, it's been, 2 years now since I was last with the club, and I've been sort of playing my football higher up the pyramid in the UK, and it sort of just seemed the right time to move back to the club and sort of help them this year with the promotion push. And
just on that point, like you say, you've for those who don't know, for a bit of context, you've been playing in the Northern Premier League system, so at a higher level with firstly Dunstan and then Ashington more recently. So since moving from FC Isle of Man and playing for those clubs over the last couple of years, what are the biggest things you've picked up, do you think, skill set wise, at the higher level that you could maybe bring to FC Isle of Man this season?
I'd say the first one would be the amount of experience I've gained from a lot of the lads over there who have been full-time footballers. Obviously, you get a lot of older lads now sort of wanting to come and play non-league because it's not as, obviously, there's hardly any travel involved compared to being in a full-time club, so they seem to come down a level as they get older, and sort of just learning off them really about certain points in the game and like certain like stuff to do in the game. Being a midfielder, you know, you learn a lot off them, and obviously the managers I've worked with as well, they're really high level managers as well, so I've learned a lot over the last 2 years with obviously them 2 clubs.
And speaking of your role within those clubs over the last couple of years, you mentioned being as a midfielder, which a lot of FC Isle of Man fans will have known you for when you first played for the club. It hasn't just been in midfield though, you've had to diversify a little bit as well at your previous 2 clubs.
Yeah, so obviously when I was at Dunstan, I got utilised as a full-back on right back and left back, and obviously in centre mid as well. And then when I moved to Ashington this season, I had a good stint of, I reckon, about 5 or 6 games where I was playing right back, and then I swapped over to left back, and then I've played a few games in centre mid. So I've sort of been all round really. But I'd say that's something as a footballer I can offer. I'm a really, really like versatile player, and I feel really comfortable wherever I play. But as everyone knows, I'd say my strongest position is in midfield. And
coming back to FC Isle of Man, famous among FC Isle of Man supporters, I think it's fair to say, for that stunning half volley in the Division 1 South playoff semi-final against Wythenshawe Amateurs. So what are your fondest memories to this point of FC Isle of Man in your previous stint here?
Obviously, that first season was unbelievable. You know, we won the cup. We went up in the playoffs. For me, that was the first time I've experienced something like that. The amount of fans what were at the games in that first year was something I could only dream of, to be fair. You know, sort of playing in front of nearly 2,000 people every week, and then we had the luxury of near enough a full stadium for the semi-final and the final. It was absolutely unbelievable. And then, as you touched on there, that moment against Wythenshawe, I think that'll stay with me for the rest of my life, that goal. But yeah, there was loads in that first year, and I'm just really happy to be back.
Fast forward again to now, and FC Isle of Man, although they suffered a last gasp defeat in their last game against AFC Liverpool prior to that, had gone on a long unbeaten run and a good winning streak as well. That's put them in the promotion playoff spots as things stand at the moment. What do you make of FC Isle of Man's season so far, looking from the outside?
Ever since I've left, really, I've always sort of like followed them, and I've always kept in touch with all the lads. And obviously I've been following this season while I've been away. They've had a really good start. You know, the ideas what Paul wanted to sort of bring to the team, I think are now starting to work with all the lads. I think they're all starting to buy into that project, what sort of Paul wants to use with the club. And you know, over the last month they've had a really good run of, what was it, 8 games unbeaten or something like that. Obviously, sadly, that came to an end. But for me, they just need to sort of take one game at a time, as this next month for the club is so important, as they've got some really, really big games coming up.
Sort of half answered my last question really there in terms of looking forward for the rest of the season and wherever you fit into the setup as well. What do you think both you and the team are capable of for the rest of the campaign?
Well, I think the team is more than capable than winning that league, and if that doesn't happen, well, I think it's a minimum really that the club has to finish in the playoff places, and then obviously the club's already been there, hasn't it, in the playoffs. So if we can get there, we know that we'll get all the fans behind us, and fingers crossed we can achieve promotion at the end of the season. And then touching on me, really, I sort of want to come back into the SELP and use my experience, what I've gained away for the last few years, and really help the lads, achieve that goal at the end of the season.
Jack Camarda, the midfielder who's re-signed for FC Isle of Man for the remainder of the 24-25 season, got just a couple of moments, so just bring Tony back in very briefly. Tony, Jack Camarda rejoining FC Isle of Man, a familiar face back in the system. Good signing?
Yeah, great signing. Jack's a really good player. He's developed into a good player, and he's still young. And when you think of the wonder goals that he scored for FC Isle of Man, absolutely fantastic. But where's he going to fit in? Because there's a right battle going on in that midfield now, isn't it, where he wants to go, and just all around the team. So it bodes well for Paul. He means that he can sort of move things around a little bit, maybe elsewhere to help him, and it's all a good sign for FC Isle of Man.
Indeed, and just a reminder, FC Isle of Man's fixture against Prestwich Hayes this weekend, 6 p.m. at the Bowl tomorrow, has been postponed and will be rearranged in due course. That's the football side of things. We'll be taking a look at rugby and hockey as usual very shortly, and before that as well, a huge shot at national glory for an Isle of Man born fighter. All of that to come after the news. We'll be back in just a few moments.
Manx Radio Sport.
Welcome back to Friday Sport Preview on Manx Radio. We're turning our attention to boxing now, and after years of grafting and working his way through the ranks in the sport, Ireland-born fighter Mathew Rennie is potentially just one step away from national glory. The Manxman, undefeated so far in the pro ranks, faces Sean Noakes for the English welterweight title at Wembley Arena in London tomorrow night. Magic Rennie's told Manx Radio this week what it means to finally have this opportunity and what he thinks of his chances of fulfilling a childhood dream. Matty, thanks very much for joining us. Now, this coming weekend is a thing that you've been dreaming of now for the last couple of years, grinding through the pro ranks over months and weeks and many, many hours of training. So this national title fight at Wembley Arena, just how much is this going to mean to you?
Yeah, well, you say there a couple of years, but I've been dreaming this moment since I was a little kid. When I was 8 years old or even younger, I already envisioned me becoming a professional boxer and winning titles, and this is like a dream come true, but it's one that I don't want it to just, escape me. I want to take it all in and make sure that I win that title and then go on to bigger things. This is it's a massive step up, but as I said, the rewards that can come from this is there's a lot to fight for on Saturday night.
Of course, you've been based off Ireland now for the last few years. Just what kind of sacrifices did you have to make in moving off Ireland to pursue your dream up until this point?
Okay, well, I moved over when I was about 18, I think, and I just left with a car and a blow-up bed, and that's all I had. So, I've came a long way since then, and I've chased a dream, and now, it's in touching distance.
And of course, still undefeated in the pro ranks, all wins bar one draw, but no defeats as well. What are the biggest things you've learned, particularly in your most recent fights going into this?
I think every fight you learn, every fight you have someone different in front of you. It's a different style. Even the build-up to a fight, there's always different obstacles to overcome before a fight. And then, like you said there, you pointed out the draw. The draw was probably one of my biggest learning curves, because it was like, this isn't a walk in the park, and Saturday night's not going to be a walk in the park either. But I think timing's everything in boxing, and this has come at the right time. I think I've done everything I've needed to do to get. I deserve this shot at the title. It's not like I've just been given it. I've worked for it, and then I've also been working hard in training. I've not cut no corners, and I'll be ready to go on Saturday night.
And obviously on a huge stage, an iconic stage in British boxing as well at Wembley Arena. What's that going to be like to walk out and step into the ring at somewhere like that with a title on the line as well?
Yeah, again, as you've taken it all in, not let it get to my head, and not let it overwhelm me. Just take it in, enjoy it, and make sure that I'm focused on the performance rather than the other things. And it can be hard to do. I can imagine that it's all going to be new to me walking out in this big stage, but it's one of them. It's got to be done at this level. This is the big time now. So
naturally, obviously, you're out there to win. Just quite simply, what would it mean to you to secure that title? You know the challenge in front of you and how good your opponent is. What would it mean to get it over the line?
Well, it'd be 20 years of blood, sweat, and tears. To get to this point, and not just to get to this point, but to win it. So you can imagine achieving a childhood dream. It's all I've ever wanted. So I'm gonna leave everything in that ring on Saturday night and make sure that I come out victorious.
And your opponent as well, Sean Noakes. What, if anything, do you know about him and maybe the challenge that you'll have to be wary of up against him?
Yeah, well, I know he's the English champion, so he's got what I want. He's obviously a solid fighter. He's not as experienced as me as a pro or an amateur, I don't think. I feel like the experience is on my side. He's done the 10 rounds, I've done the 8 rounds. It's not much in it, but it's a good, on paper, it's a good 50-50 fight, but it's one that I truly believe I could win. I wouldn't be going there if I didn't. I wouldn't be in this sport if I didn't think I could win an English title. And this, like I said, this is a massive stepping stone for bigger things in the future, and Sean's just the person in my way that I need to beat.
And in terms of the backing you get, we've spoken previously about the support you continue to get from the island, but you've also mentioned how in the community you're now based in, you've started to build up a bit of a following as well. So what would it mean to see both a following from the island and also the community you're in now to try and help you through this big title fight at the weekend?
Yeah, listen, support's always good. It always helps you, whether it's not even turning up to the fights, if it's sponsorship or if it's just a message to say good luck and whatnot. And then the lads that are turning up and have been turning up from day one to watch me, I owe a lot to them all, because it pushes me on the night and it pushes me through camp as well. You don't want to let people down. You don't want to let yourself down either, obviously, but everyone that's coming, spending their hard-earned money to come watch me, I can't thank them all enough. And on the night, I'll do everyone proud.
And finally as well, looking forward, as you always insist before fight as well, you're not looking any further ahead than the opponent that's in front of you. But if you were to get the job done on Saturday night, that in mind, and also that recent move you had as well to Warren Boxing Management as well, in terms of the management side of things, just how many doors could it open up for you if things go your way on Saturday?
Yeah, I truly believe when I win on Saturday night, my life changes. So it's everything to fight for on Saturday night. I've got my life ahead of me to fight for, basically.
That's Manxman Mathew Magic Rennie ahead of his English welterweight title fight against Sean Noakes at Wembley Arena in London tomorrow night. That fight is part of what is called the Magnificent Seven show, which is being broadcast live on Saturday night on TNT Sports in what is a busy few weeks for some of those Manx-born boxers as well. Not forgetting that Matthew's younger brother Sam in the last couple of weeks also got his second professional win out in Australia, and 2 other Isle of Man professional fighters in action in a week's time, both Jamie Devine and Jade Burden fighting on the 15th of December in Liverpool. That's to come.
Manx Radio Sport.
Turning our attention to rugby now, and just like the football, it has not escaped the effects of the incoming weather. Joined by our rugby correspondent as ever, Dave Christian. Now, Dave, as it stands, we went into this weekend with 4 fixtures penned in total. Before we get to a couple of them, first off, the ones that we know for definite will not be taking place this weekend, if people don't know already.
Yeah, the Manx Shield game between Western Vikings and Southern Nomads, that was QE2 at 2:15 tomorrow. That's postponed. Not a difficult decision, I don't think, because with it being a school pitch, the clubs are not hampered. It's the wrong way to say that. They're restricted on when they can and can't use the pitch by the Department of Education, Sport and Culture, who have to look after them for educational purposes. And the pitches down at QE2 can get a little soft underfoot. And I think with the amount of rain that we've had recently, that was an easy call to make. The second game that we've lost is the Southern Nomads Under-16 Cheshire Cup game. That was due to be played tomorrow at 2:15. I'm going to stick my neck out here and guess because I don't know for sure, but I think they were travelling on the Manxman and the steam packet cancelled the boat earlier on. So that game had to be rearranged once again, and that was away at Chester. I think that's the second time now they've had to call it off. Fell victim to the last storm that went through. There is another under-14s game that we haven't got on the card. That's Ramsey against Wirral. It's due to be played at New Brighton on Sunday afternoon. Not heard on that one yet, so I'll wait and see what we're going to find out from the guys at Ramsey later on tonight. We know that the weather conditions are due to improve a little bit on Sunday. The wind's going to steadily fall away. But once again, it's down to New Brighton, who are hosting the game because the Ramsey were drawn at home. And the game is therefore played on a neutral venue, but Ramsey have to play on somewhere within the borders of Cheshire. So the New Brighton stuck their neck out and said, yeah, we'll gladly have you at our place. And sadly, that's been postponed. And it was postponed once with the last storm. It may well be postponed again, but we'll have to wait and see on that one.
Indeed. Well, let's take a look at two other games due to take place this weekend. Douglas Regional 2 North West on the road at Winnington Park, and Vagabonds in County 3 ADM Lancashire Cheshire action due to welcome Duckenfield. And as it stands, at least on pitch conditions, Dave, these games have passed muster in terms of pitch condition, but there is a huge caveat on what travel may or may not go ahead during the morning.
Yeah, I mean, Douglas Winnington Park, I had a message from Douglas coach Phil Kringle earlier this afternoon. He said Winnington Park have had a pitch inspection of their ground. They're happy that it's going to be playable, and it will be playable provided Douglas get there. Kick-off is set for 1:15, so that tells me, given Winnington Park is in Northwich, which is closer to Manchester than Liverpool, it tells me that Douglas are probably on the early flight to Manchester tomorrow morning with a 1:15 kick-off. We're going to have to wait and see what Loganair do. There's no news from them yet, but you always know Loganair are really customer-friendly, and they give you the option a couple of days beforehand. If the weather's looking iffy, they'll say, look, we've got possible weather disruption. If you want to rebook, you can do now for free. And that's always a subtle hint that things might not quite go to plan. So Douglas, away at Winnington Park, it'd be a shame if they don't go ahead. They've got a really strong squad travelling, and Winnington Park below them in the table and got a proper mauling a couple of weeks ago, last weekend against Sandbach. Douglas struggling in places. At 10 is one of their big worries. Bryn Snellgrove's reliable and a very astute performer, but he's not making himself available, or he's unavailable for away matches. So they've planned a little switcheroo tomorrow. They've got Nathan Robson's going to take the number 10 jersey, and Brendan Kelly, who started the season in the 9 jersey, is going to come back at scrum half. And the other big name for Douglas, or the two big names for Douglas really, Simon Hodgenott is going to be available for the game in the front row. He's an immense performer, can play all 3 roles in the front row and other positions as well. And the guy that impressed me last week and picked up the man of the match in that home game was Blake Everson. He's not a big guy, but he's quick around the park. He'll throw himself into any sort of tackle. And when it comes to recovering the ball on the ground, he gets in such a great low body position, legs spread wide. He's down over the ball like a ferret, and just the sort of man you want on the field to win you ball on the ground. And Blake Everson also on the team sheet for tomorrow. So Douglas looking pretty good, I think, on paper at least. And if the game goes ahead, I think conditions are probably going to be soft. It's going to be forward orientated, a bit of an arm wrestle, stick it up your jumper. But Douglas got big enough forwards to be able to do that, and they've got pace and guile outside as well. So I think if they travel, they're going to come back with some points and maybe their first away win of the season.
Yeah, so that game in the Regional 2 Northwest, Winnington Park versus Douglas, currently scheduled for 1:15pm kickoff at Burrows Hill in Northwich. But as Dave has rightly pointed out, a lot will depend on whether Douglas can make it there with the travel and expected travel disruption across the island with the inclement weather expected tomorrow. The Douglas squad is as follows. So the starting 15, numbers 1 to 15 in order, are as follows: Ralph Clark, Gerhard Verzagi, Simon Hoddenott, Connor Garland, the captain Blake Snell, Blake Everson, Mark Oldfield, Harry Cartwright, Brendan Kelly, Nathan Robson, Charlie Henthorne, James Ross, Harry Hewson, Sam McCord and Carl Martin. 3 substitutes for Douglas, player coach Phil Kringle, as well as Ryan Wren and Wilf Hewson. Elsewhere, Vagabonds back in action, Counties 3, ADM Lancashire, Cheshire, and what is continuing to be a very tough season for them as it stands at the moment. Their latest visitors are a team that find themselves in a similar position, Duckenfield 10th in the table, Vagabonds in 11th. Again, Dave, with the caveat that this game may or may not go ahead. If it does, how important a game could this be in the season for Vagabonds?
To be honest, Rob, the league's turned into a little, I'm not going to say farce, that sounds going to be a little bit harsh on the organising committee. There were 14 entries into this league, which is the bottom league in the structure, and 14 was too many to play the 12-game season that the RFU have aligned themselves with. But there were too few to have 2 separate leagues. So we got this horrible mishmash rather than mismatch. Before Christmas, everybody plays each other once, and then after Christmas, the league's going to split into 2 mini-leagues. Vagabonds, I think, no matter what happens against Duckenfield, will be in the second of those mini-leagues. I don't think there's any way for them back, looking at the way the points are structured. But it's a real shame because Blackpool pulled out before the season started and Old Bedians pulled out just a couple of weeks back. And that meant it's actually a 12-team league. And if those clubs hadn't have, and again, I'm not going to be critical of either because obviously both have problems, but if those had made a better decision at the start of the season, we perhaps wouldn't be in the position we're in now. But we are where we are. Now, kick-off set for 1 o'clock at Bella Fletcher. We'll be there to cover that one for Saturday Live if indeed it kicks off. But the 1 o'clock kickoff tells me that Duckenfield, which is the east side of Manchester, are probably travelling on the return leg of that early morning Manchester flight. If that's cancelled at this end, it's obviously going to be cancelled at the other. So the Storm, again, could play its part in this game. Vagabonds, though, on paper, the team sheet's looking pretty good. Some guys who've been missing are back. Tom Gascoigne, I know, was back into the back row. Daniel Bonwick, the captain, back in the number 10 jersey. He took a head knock a few weeks back and he's had to sit out under the RFU concussion protocols. Archie Benson returns to the centre, and Cam Finley, whose name we haven't seen on a team sheet for several months now. Cam Finley's due back to start at fullback. So Vagans have got some of their big guns coming back. Messy weather, but a good home crowd. I think they should be able to take Duckenfield, but that all depends on Storm Darragh.
Dave, thanks very much in the meantime. So yes, that Vagabonds team to face Duckenfield for that game tomorrow, should it go ahead. Joe Lau, Matthew Rockwell, John Ferguson, Aaron Sloan, Paul Howard, and then it's Tom Gascoigne, Gav Turnbull, Jed Snell, Tom Neeson, the captain, Daniel Bonwick, Archie Benson, Cal Donnell, John Riley, Cam Finley, Regan Williams, and 3 substitutes, Ant Pearson and Ryan Pope as well. Dave, thank you very much. In the meantime, we're going to be taking a look at hockey as well and what might be taking place on Ireland this weekend, if indeed possible, around the weather. We're going to be back in just a few moments.
Manx Radio Sport.
And finally tonight here on Friday Sport Preview, we're going to be turning our attention to hockey. And whilst the outdoor mixed leagues are very much concluding for 2024, there's still trophies up for grabs in the sport this weekend. 6 finals in just 1 day are planned in the island capital tomorrow. And to find out more, I spoke with our hockey correspondent, Ben Cunningham. Ben, looking to this weekend, although the outdoor leagues are very much toward the tail end of the season, we do have indoor hockey coming up this weekend. Before we get to that, though, just a bit of tidying up, really. We are expecting inclement weather this weekend. A number of games were postponed a couple of weeks ago. So where do we stand with some of the mixed league games which are still to be played?
Yes, so we've got a couple of rearranged fixtures happening this weekend. Hopefully, as long as the weather plays ball. But also we have had some midweek games as well, just to tidy up the last few games in the mixed leagues. We did have one, unfortunately, called off on Wednesday. That was due to Peel's pitch sadly flooding. But yeah, I think the plan is that one's going to try and be rearranged to this weekend. but hopefully we should have all the mixed games all boxed off by the end of this weekend.
Well, fingers crossed things can go ahead. And when we're talking about things going ahead, something that has been taking place outside of, say, the mixed leagues, for example, we've had the indoor hockey season going on over the last few months, and it's all coming ahead, due to come to a head this weekend on Saturday the 7th of December for the 2024 Indoor Hockey Finals Day. And we have a selection of games on. We'll start with the mixed Premiership game, and that's going to see an interclub derby between Vikings A and Vikings B. And then also at 11 a.m, mixed Division 1, Backers B versus Harlequins B.
Yeah, of course, the Vikings derby, you would favour the A team to come out over the B team, but I'm sure the B team will give a good run. And then for the other game, two very even sides there, and it could go either way.
And then elsewhere, 12 o'clock, the Men's Premier League sees Vikings A up against Valkyries A. And then shortly after that, at 1 p.m. in Men's Division 1, Vikings B versus Back.
Yeah, the Valkyries Vikings game in the Premier League, I think Vikings are looking strong for that one. And then in the other one, that one I think could go either way. Two very evenly matched sides again.
And then two games rounding off are focused on the Ladies Indoor League, starting with the Ladies Premier League. Valkyries A up against Castletown A at 2 p.m. And then rounding things off, Ladies Division 1, Castletown B versus Backers B.
Yeah, Castletown A against Valkyries A. That one will be a really interesting game. Of course, when they've met in the outdoor leagues, it's been a very close encounter, and we have seen Castletown overcome them. And then, like you say, the same fixture again in the Division 1. Of course, Castletown, never rule them out. They do spring up a good surprise, so could possibly be a Castletown double in the ladies, we'll see.
Although this is indoor, and on paper at least, it might give these games a bit more of a chance to avoid the inclement weather. What is the situation at the moment? Are we just seeing how things develop in terms of the conditions?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it'll be very much a case of waiting to see, as long as everything's all right around the NSC. Of course, possibility of the National Sports Centre possibly being closed for safety reasons, so if it does happen, then unfortunately finals day won't go ahead. But of course, full updates will be on Manx Radio, or it will be published on the Manx Hockey Association's Facebook page.
Manx Radio's hockey correspondent Ben Cunningham there with a quick preview of the 2024 Indoor Hockey Finals Day, due to take place at the NSC Sports Hall from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. tomorrow. That's just about us. All done here on Friday Sport Preview for this week. Many thanks to our correspondents and guests as usual. Just a reminder then of some of the disruption that is facing sport this weekend in football. All matches across the Isle of Man football leagues on Saturday have been postponed due to the expected poor weather. You can see the details of the games that have been postponed over at manxradio.com. They will be rescheduled in due course. Matches taking place on Sunday in the Canada Life Women's Floodlit Cup and the Masters football are still going ahead as it stands at the moment on Sunday. If there are any updates, the Isle of Man FA will issue those in due course. Also in football, the NWCFL Premier Division match at the Bowl at 6 o'clock tomorrow night between FC Isle of Man and Prestwich Hayes. That has also been called off due to the expected poor weather. That will be rescheduled in due course. The hockey indoor finals currently due to go ahead as it stands, and as we just heard from Ben Cunningham there, if there are any further updates, they will be issued by the Manx Hockey Association in due course. In rugby, two games postponed. They are one of those in the Manx Shield at QE2 in Peel Western Vikings versus Southern Nomads. That was due to take place at 2:15 tomorrow. And in the Under-16s Cheshire Cup second round, Southern Nomads Under-16s trip to Chester Under-16s, I should say, that has also been postponed. Currently the game for Douglas in Regional 2 Northwest against Winnington Park away from home, and also Vagabonds home tie against Duckenfield in Counties 3 ADM going ahead as it stands at the moment, but are subject to travel plans going ahead. Well, have yourself a wonderful Friday and a wonderful weekend, whatever you're doing, and please do take care out there with the conditions that we are expecting across the island. Please do stay safe. That's all from us, though, in the meantime, and well, until next time, it is from me and the team. Bye for now.
Manx Radio Sport.